What's good, everybody? It's Robo from All Bark back with another video, and today I'm bringing you another update to my 2025 NBA Draft Big Board. This is my current opinion on the class post March Madness. I'll have another couple updates before the real draft in June. And also, early next week, I'll have my final NFL mock draft coming out before the real draft, so stay tuned for that as well. But that's it for the intro, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the board. Before we get into the list, here's my honorable mentions. These are guys that I do not currently have in my top 60 for a number of reasons. The orange ones are a mix of guys who have entered the portal or opted to return to school already or are expected to, and the rest are guys who haven't announced their intentions yet or out of college eligibility. This is somewhat in order besides the portal guys, but nothing set in stone by any means. Let me know your thoughts on if there's anyone here you think deserves a spot in the top 60. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started with the top 60, starting at number 1. Cooper Flagg is going to be the number 1 pick. He was a National Player of the Year as a freshman for Duke after one of the most dominant two-way seasons we've seen at the college level in a while. Doing so while still being a younger 18-year-old, averaging nearly 20 points a game, dishing out 4 assists, shooting at a high clip, and being an incredible defensive presence for the Blue Devils. The shot-making jump late in the year is proof he can be a number 1 guy in the league. We saw the athleticism and IQ on display all year. The handle and continued shot consistency is what can separate him into a superstar at some point in his NBA career.
For Arizona, the down one, Flagg kind of taken over by Gillis at Duke. Flagg pushing, looks at the clock, fires a 3, down it goes! Not bank it in, Malowacz keeps it alive, somehow it ends up in Flagg's hand.
Dylan Harper is pretty unanimously the number 2 prospect in this draft. Harper has dominated on the floor for Rutgers this season as an offensive engine. He's got a rare blend of scoring, playmaking, and size at the lead guard spot that can make him really unguardable. He can get to the rim with ease. He has a strong handle and good burst to help him do so, and the jumper has come along as well. His skill set is similar to a guy like Cade Cunningham or a bigger Jalen Brunson, and I definitely see the potential of a future All-NBA level guard with him, as long as the shot continues to get more consistent.
See if they can open up the floor. Wow, look at this. Harper! Dylan! 10 in the conference in assists. Harper splitting the defense.
There's Harper. Students counting it down, he got right to the basket.
VJ Edgecombe grew a ton this season. He wasn't much of a scorer for Baylor early on. His athleticism helped him be involved, but as the year progressed, he took a major leap as a scorer, taking guys off the dribble and creating offense. Before the year started, he was a potential top 5 pick, despite clear shooting questions, and now he's solidified himself there, projecting to be at least a decent shooter and a great two-way player. And again, the main attraction with VJ is the freak athleticism and defense, where he averaged over 2 steals a game and had some highlight blocks over the course of the season.
Stolen away, breakaway. Rob Wright is back.
Trying to find the open man, they do. Edgecombe got him.
One of them quickly. I agree.
Right. Airborne! That's a...
Ace Bailey is who he is. Some love his game and scoring potential, while others see red flags and wouldn't touch him. I was torn for a while, but the shot making this season was at a level you just can't ignore. And I think his shot creation took a bit of a leap compared to early on in the season, and the athleticism and his size is enough to be a top 5 pick. His size and length make him a strong upside defender. He can rim protect while having the tools to guard on the perimeter. The shot selection and lack of separation and creation can be an issue, and his advanced numbers don't look great, but there's a ton of time for growth with him.
A lot better. The ball's going in with some of these guys. Oh, the cross. Bailey. Off with 4. Rice. Inside. Oh.
Here's Bailey again. Knifing inside. Bailey to the rim.
Trey Johnson's another bigger guard prospect, but definitely more of a scoring guard than a creator. He's pretty reliant on the jumper to score, as he's lacking a bit in burst and explosiveness, but the shooting and touch in the mid-range is such a strong area of his game. He's established himself as a top 5 or 6 guy in this class to me. He shot almost 40% from deep on good volume and had nearly 90 free throw percentage, and Trey can defend on ball well enough to suggest he'll be a plus on that side in the future. He's got good size for a secondary guard in the NBA, which helps make up some of that lack of playmaking that he's shown.
Again, we talk about controlling the game offensively.
5. Johnson, step back 3. Of course.
Seam. Well played by Conwell. He's going to elevate corner 3.
Derek Queen had a really strong year for Maryland, including a dominant back half of the season and tournament, which won him Big Ten Freshman of the Year over 4 other projected lottery picks. He's got a really well-rounded offensive game. He's got great touch around the basket, a ton of strength in his bigger frame, and some pretty advanced IQ as a playmaker out of the post. The type of moves he pulls off to get good looks is what causes the baby Jokic comparisons, and you can probably see it just from his highlights. Defense can be seen as a question mark for sure, especially with the weight concerns, but his mobility is not affected much by his weight, and the touch in the mid-range and near the rim is really strong, separating it from most of the other big men in this class, in my opinion.
Queen wants to dance with Wolf. Baseline.
From the out of bounds.
to the freshman queen who's driving, floats it.
Jeremiah Fear is one of the best young guards in all of college basketball and skyrocketed on the draft boards this year. And after a mid-season rough patch, he adjusted well and blew through it to end the year on a high note for his draft stock. His speed and quickness are on a different level than most college guards, and he's got a knack for drawing fouls and hitting clutch shots down the stretch. The drawback is the consistency with the jumper. He didn't shoot well this season, but he's going to grow into that area, and he's got the form and occasional results to suggest it'll improve. Turnovers were another rough spot, but he's got a good strong handle to lessen some of those concerns in the future. And I think with his size and speed, he projects to be a really fun athletic playmaker.
You got to get it off quick. He does.
Wagee.
This is where Fears is dangerous.
Look at that.
Kaman Malawach is definitely a raw prospect. We saw that in his last game at Duke where he completely disappeared against Houston. And while that is true, it shouldn't take away from the season he had as an impact he can make. He was still on the all-region team for a reason, and on the year he dominated in his role as a setup scorer and put-back big man, shooting over 70% from the floor and knocking down an occasional jumper. However, Malawach can be much more than just a role player in the dunker spot. He's got some potential as a shooter, and he's an excellent screener in the pick and roll. And defensively is where he shines, despite a lower block total. On tape, he's super disruptive and tough to score over in the paint because of that 7'6" reach advantage.
Back in the game, Malawach. He's going to take it at half. Knipple, 11 first half points.
Kon Knippel is a high-level shooting wing prospect and came along as the season progressed for Duke as one of the premier scorers for the team. And when Cooper Flagg went down for a few games with an injury, he stepped up leading the team to the title and came away with the ACC tournament MVP. Of course, his main role is as a three-point shooter, but he showed some more scoring versatility and passing ability along that way. The defensive side of the ball hasn't been a big issue at the college level, but there's some clear limitations there. However, the shot making and playmaking are what makes him a strong prospect, and there's little to no doubt about those abilities translating.
The offensive end. Knipple into traffic. Look, James kicks it. Quick release.
Cook. He always brings energy.
Kasparis Yakuchonis had an incredible start to the year, becoming a potential top 3 pick by mid-season, but some turnover issues and efficiency drop-off had him slide down for me. I still think he's worth a lottery pick though, and he's such a fun player to watch. He has all the tools a guard needs to succeed in the NBA. He's a very confident, flashy player, both in his passes and shot selection, and he's got great size for a lead guard listed at 6'6", 200. His scoring bag is super deep as well, being able to create and knock down shots from all 3 levels, and I completely buy the jumper despite the percentage, so combined with the playmaking ability, he's definitely still the guy to consider in the lottery.
He's from Canada.
Yakuchonis. Shot clock at 7, the free.
Colin Murray Boyles is one of the best players in the country this season, despite his team finishing last in the SEC. He managed second-team all-conference individually. The 6'7" big man has improved his game a ton and become a potential top 10 pick this season. He's still more of a non-shooter, but he should continue to grow in that area, and even without that, he impacts the game in so many ways on both ends and dominates in the post. He uses his strength to his advantage and is really crafty with the ball and has taken a real leap as a playmaker despite the assist total not really showing it. He creates good looks for both himself and others and has succeeded even when being the focal point of an opposing defense all season long, while being a force on the other end of the floor at the same time.
Oklahoma, the Sooners get another chance.
Jace Richardson's finish to the season shot himself into serious lottery pick conversations, becoming Michigan State's #1 option offensively, putting up some huge scoring nights on high efficiency and consistency in the process. He is a bit smaller at just 6'3", but the scoring bag is really advanced. He made a ton of tough layups and floaters in traffic and has a pretty strong handle to beat defenders with and get to the rim. And on top of that, the jumper is extremely pure. We've seen some advanced passing flashes too, and he's a solid athlete to help make up for the lack of elite size, and a breakout at that level of efficiency at the guard spot this early on in the process should have tons of teams in the mid to late lottery excited about potentially drafting him.
Magic number for Michigan State could be 70. They're 27-1 when they score 7. Most of them in the first half. Richardson is going to take it himself. He's got another gear.
Asa Newell is still a lottery level prospect for me. He fits a role I really like in the league as an athletic stretch big who thrives in a dunker spot. He gets himself easy buckets around the rim and had some great games at Georgia this year displaying his freak athleticism. He's 6'11" and is fluid as a wing on both ends of the floor. He showed a solid jumper, and defensively he can switch and run on the floor in transition. He didn't shoot a great percentage, but had some better shooting nights throughout the year and has been very solid at the free throw line, which just makes his athleticism, size, and aggression even more enticing for NBA teams to consider.
Godfrey will get it to Newell. He'll shoot for 3. Into another 3. Newell fights for the rebound. Takes it on Grant.
Asa Newell, he is so unselfish, but when he goes to the bucket,
Noah Asenge is another tall French wing prospect with some questions on the jumper, but enough size and fluidness to warrant some lottery love. The shot hasn't been great this season, but he looks comfortable shooting the ball and has hit a hot stretch recently from deep, and has found ways to score efficiently regardless. He gets to the line pretty consistently, and overall he's putting up about 10 a game as an 18-year-old playing in Germany's top league. With his frame and motor on the wing, I can see a lot of teams loving him, but without elite athleticism, the shot will have to be a part of his game at some point, but the player he is right now still looks valuable enough for a mid-first round grade to me. Igor Demon had a pretty solid tournament run for BYU and elected to declare for the draft rather than return and play with AJ Debance next season. As a player, he's got some really high-level creation skill for a 6'8 guard, maybe being the best passer in the draft, but an extended slump with an increase in level of competition hurt his draft stock a bit, and because of it, I still don't love him as a lottery pick. Igor has a lot of room for improvement still as a scorer, though I still think his playmaking, handle, and fluidness at 6'8 is more than enough to consider him in this area of the first round. The potential is sky high, but the weaknesses of explosion and consistency are holding him back from being the elite prospect some thought he was early on.
11 made threes already. Demon going to work, got a man up and gives it up. Here's Demon, drives.
Liam McNeely is a better shooter than his percentage in the year paint him to be, but being what they are, it's obvious as to why his stock seems to be slipping a little bit out of the lottery. He's seen as a high floor, lower ceiling guy who can be an early plug and play in a rotation, and the shooting splits weren't great for that to be a super appealing pick, but I think most scouts know his capabilities as a shooter and off-ball scorer. He played his role really well for a freshman at UConn still, and had some huge scoring nights, including a 37-point performance this season. And he showcased the ability to create some looks for himself on ball as well, which definitely increases that potential in the future. I still see him fitting into the NBA as an off-ball movement shooter and connector.
Down by Johnson. The cutter. McNeely rises up.
Thomas Sorber suffered an injury that ended his freshman season at Georgetown mid-season, but we saw more than enough with him to believe he's still worth a first-round pick and potentially even a lottery pick. He received all Big East honors still despite the injury. He's an all-around big man who impacted the college game in several ways at just 18. As a scorer, passer, rebounder, and defender, producing in every instance. He can stretch the floor as well, but struggle with efficiency, and the shot definitely needs improvement. But even without it, Sorber provides so much value as a defender and all-around paint player.
Jenkins. He drives. Johnson.
Make things happen. I would not be surprised if he gets a bucket.
Sorber.
Carter Bryant is someone I had pegged early as a late-season draft riser, and he proved me and many others right with a stellar end of the season, shooting well into first-round consideration. The usage rate is concerning, but his minutes and role saw a leap because of his consistent disruption on the defensive end and ability to knock down shots in timely moments. And as time goes on in the league, I think we'll see Carter turn into a really well-rounded player. He can give any team smart, high-energy minutes, and the jumper looks strong enough to be a reliant scorer in the future on the wing, where he's got great size at 6'8", 220.
Working it around out of that timeout, short for Bryant. Who chases
In the trees, Bryant for three.
Nolan Traore hasn't had much success this season and fell down boards quite a bit, and his play is falling back down lately after a decent stretch before my last big board. I think it's obvious he's just not quite there yet to be a lottery pick where his original projection was, so looking at him now, he's a 6'4" lead guard who's best as a playmaker and downhill scorer using his quickness. He dishes about 5 assists a night and could still be another future star Frenchman in the NBA as the early hype was there for a reason. We just need to see better shot making out of him so the translation makes more sense. Danny Wolf ended the year on a strong note, helping Michigan make the Sweet 16 and landing on the All-Region team in the NCAA tournament, which helped move his stock back up a bit for me, firmly into the first round. 7-footers with this skill set are so rare, and he continued to be an advanced playmaker for Michigan while leading him onto the glass as a near double-digit rebounder. He can put the ball on the floor and isolate to get buckets, and off the ball he's got range as a popper. He shot under 34% from 3 though, so I wouldn't say it's a strength of his, but he is a capable shooter. However, turnovers were an issue with him all year, as well as the long-term defensive ability up against NBA bigs.
Wolf against Broom. Step back, Jay. Maybe on the bounce here. Wolf crosses, spins.
Nate Clifford came back to Colorado State to be the leading scorer this season, and he did exactly that, putting on some absolute clinic performances to close out the year, becoming a Mountain West Tournament MVP on top of the all-defense team, locking himself in as a first-round pick, dropping 19 and 10 a night on 50% from the field. Clifford put everything together now that the 3 ball's hitting at a pretty impressive volume. I think the production, two-way ability, and clear leadership values will draw interest from a ton of competitive teams looking to add a rotation piece to the mix.
In those 7 games. Clifford!
Away from the basket.
Clifford. So good. It's Clifford turns the corner.
Walter Clayton Jr. was one of the most exciting players to watch in the country this season, leading the Gators to a national title after an incredible run, coming away with the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player Award, and as a result, I've moved him way up into the firm first-round territory. Honestly, I could see that run pushing his stock near the lottery, but he is older and more of a score-first point guard with average size, which should limit his stock. But he averaged over 4 assists a game and made some incredible plays throughout the year, and his improvement as a rim finisher at just 6'3" is a great sign that he'll be able to score and create at the next level beyond just shooting. So I really like his potential and compare him to a guy like Peyton Pritchard in the NBA.
Clayton, head and shoulder fake, step back, out, 10 to shoot. Clayton the drive.
Rasheer Fleming's performance this season shot him into lottery contention, but he didn't end the year in the way he wanted to, and I could see that dropping him into the 20s of this draft. All year, though, he was one of the most productive players in the country with a ton of versatility. The athleticism and shooting is obvious, but he's shown creation flashes and elite defensive tools and instincts at the mid-major level, using his 7'5" wingspan to his advantage to just outmatch opponents and take over games for St. Joseph's. And despite the lesser level of competition, his traits look super translatable for the NBA.
That was really good. Now it goes in. Got Bennett with Ajabo. You have two huge mismatches. Yeah, could have got it to over the top.
Second behind David Dixon.
Fleming.
Will Riley finished the back half of the season really strong, becoming a more consistent shooter for the Illini when the three ball wasn't falling, and it led him to being named the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. His shooting splitch finished a bit lower, but we've seen the shot making on display, and he's had some big scoring bursts this season. With his size, scoring traits, and age, he'll be a first-round pick that I think a ton of rebuilding teams will want, especially with the self-creation coming along and clear shooting ability. And it does look like he's improved as a playmaker quite a bit, which should answer those questions I had earlier on too.
In double figures. Riley's had a great second half on the move. 2023. Shot clock at 1. Riley's got to fire. It's off in time.
Ben Serif is a 6'5" guard from Israel playing in Germany and has done a great job as an all-around point guard, scoring primarily at the rim and in the mid-range, using a great handle and change of pace to get to his spots and make quality shots. The downside is the obvious lack of explosiveness in his game and a fairly low three-point percentage with some shaky mechanics. But he's heating up recently, and the advantages he creates for a team with his playmaking, size, and ability with the basketball definitely help offset that. If the jumper comes around, he could definitely become an impact player fairly early on in his career.
Get into a half-court set. Montero having to match up with Saraf. There's a step back. There's a three.
LeBaron Philon is one of my favorite players in this class to watch, and although it was an up-and-down year for him, I think it was still a great freshman season, and he ended it with some big playmaking performances. On the nights he has a scoring going, he was really a force for Alabama, but the efficiency with the jumper isn't great still. On top of that, there's obviously the size limitations with his build, but he's still incredibly quick with a great handle and scoring bag, changing pace to beat defenders in all areas, and he's a great in the mid-range and around the rim. He officially declared for the draft now, so a good showing in workouts in the combine could have his stock skyrocket up into the mid-first. Yaxel Lendeborg shot out my draft board in the second half of the year after a dominant season in the American Conference, putting up 18 and 11 a night for UAB and winning the Defensive Player of the Year award. He can block shots, pick up steals, score inside the arc, rebound, and make quality passing reads, all at 6'9". He does have some range in his bag, but doesn't take too many threes despite shooting above 30% on the year from deep. He recently committed to play for Michigan next year while also declaring for the draft, so based on the feedback he gets, we'll see what he decides, but my guess would be he's ready for the next level.
Axel down there on the block.
Noah Penda is another guy I've seen mixed opinions on. I'm a little lower on him than others, but some big outlets have him in early round 2. I see the appeal as he's got a good shot despite the lower percentage. He's a stronger defender with a straight frame at 6'8", 225 on the wing, and seems to have good instincts on the floor. The reason I'm still not sold on him enough yet, though, is because I don't see fully a ton of scoring potential outside of occasional off-ball looks and easy buckets since he's not a great athlete. But he is versatile enough as a player for NBA teams to be interested in him as a future plus defensive floor spacer on the wing.
Been one of the stars of the show today. 14 points for Diawara.
Hugo Gonzalez hasn't moved much on my board this year, mostly due to a small role playing for Real Madrid. Scouts like his athleticism and how hard he plays on the floor. We started to see more self-creation and improved shot making his minutes, but they've dipped back down lately, so I'm still pretty split with him. But he's had some solid production in his roles as a young player in the EuroLeague so far, and clearly has the tools to be a good player going forward. But with the averages as low as they are and playing just 10 minutes a game, I find it hard to see him going much higher than this range unless he really impresses in workouts. Cam Jones was one of my hidden gems in last year's draft class, and I think the extra year at Marquette was the right move as his performance this season where he stepped up as a playmaker helped his stock tremendously. We know he can get buckets at the college level, but 6 assists a night make him much more intriguing for NBA teams to evaluate, And again, it's easy to highlight his scoring ability. It's just a natural with the ball. And he has a ton of craftiness around the rim and a really strong jumper he trusts, making him one of the best guards in college basketball this season and a consensus All-American.
Jones. Lauren McGee on Cam Jones. Fall away three from the corner. Kept the dribble alive.
Tahad Pettiford is someone I really love to watch play at the college level. He had a stellar freshman season off the bench for one of the best teams in the country in Auburn. Tahad has an NBA level game to me and just an undersized body that makes it a little hard to see the full potential compared to some others. But that Michigan game alone in the tournament proved to a lot of people he can flat out score the basketball. And he has a ton of athleticism to make up for a lack of size and could play his way into the first round pick in his draft workouts.
Pettiford on the reload. He has to go back and get it. Pettiford. Step back. Pulls it. Switch back. Tennis shoot.
Got a good handle, too.
Pettiford pirouettes.
Johni Broome was one of the best players in college basketball this season, taking away the SEC Player of the Year and finishing runner-up for National Player of the Year. He's an all-around big man with production in basically every statistical category. He put up 2.5 blocks a night and a 19-point double-double with clear playmaking flashes out of the post. Whoever drafts Johni this cycle is going to get a complete NBA-ready player, especially if the jumper keeps improving. His current ability with the ball, low post offensive ability, and defensive presence is what makes him an early round 2 guy for me.
The back in. Broome. Fade away.
Much better match here.
Isolation.
Adou Thiero missed some time with an injury this year, but looks healthy now for pre-draft stuff. He's come a long way as a player since arriving in Kentucky a few years ago. He's a stellar athlete who knows how to use it to his advantage to create his own offense, and he's got great size in the wing combined with great footwork with the ball, which helped make him one of the best inside-the-arc scorers in the country this season. The clear drawback is the poor jumper and a lack of playmaking, and I think those concerns are what hold him out of being a high-level prospect, even with a big bump in scoring this season.
Over the hands of Owe. Thiero.
Joan Behringer has moved on my board consistently throughout the year as his performances in his role have gotten better and better. The volume isn't high enough for me to fully buy into him as a player yet, especially considering how little he gets involved in the offensive end. But he's going to get drafted based on what scouts believe he can be with an expanded role, and that's as a defensive-minded big man protecting the rim and switching on defense to disrupt plays with his mobility.
Lofted up top. Behringer.
Thomas Haug is one of the big breakout performers of the NCAA tournament, helping to take the Florida Gators to a national championship win, scoring in double figures in 7 of the final 9 games. He showed a really well-rounded skill set for a 6'9 forward. He's got a great jumper, he can handle the ball, and make plays on the defensive end with a super high motor. Time will tell if he declares or stays at Florida, but the skill set is absolutely draftable right now.
Clayton. Yeah, he's really struggling. Gets it back. Shot clock at 5. Rejected on the perimeter by Haug. Running the floor and Haug.
Ryan Kalkbrenner was one of the most dominant bigs in all of college basketball, especially as a rim protector, taking home the Big East Defensive Player of the Year award 4 times. Using his size to advantage of being really effective as a disruptor around the rim, even though he's not the most mobile center out there. Offensively, scouts have really wanted to see him expand his range, and he hasn't really completely, but the jumper looks way better, and he knocked down some threes this year, but the finishing ability and rim protection dominance warrants an early second-round look for sure.
Stephen Ashford still has not scored yet. As Kalkbrenner takes an outside
For 29 against Duke in the ACC title game.
Alex Condon was one of Florida's best players this season, both before and after an injury that held him out for a few weeks. And I thought that leap could lead him into some first-round conversations, but a less impactful tournament performance from him did a little of the opposite, so we'll see if he declares or stays another year. But I love his mobility and feel as a big man on top of his defensive presence. He can block shots and switch on to guards and hold his own, and if the jumper proves to be more consistent, he's got some real potential.
Push it to 10, and they will. Wide open.
Now it's Richard. Look at that slip.
Maxime Reynaud is one of the best offensive big men in the country this season. The senior averaged 20 points a game and over 10 rebounds, and has a great mix of footwork in the paint as well as a confident jumper. He hits the second most threes for a 7-footer in a season this year, and on top of that, I think he is a better athlete than he gets credit for. As a defender, he definitely has room to grow, but with his size, I can see him becoming at least average enough for his offensive skill set to get him drafted in early round 2.
Nice fake. Reynaud going for the slam.
Alex Tui flirted with the draft process last cycle, but chose to return to the NBL this year, and he improved quite a bit. He's shown more aggressiveness, especially getting to the rim. He's got good size in the wing, which he needs to use to his advantage since the jumper hasn't fallen. But I think the shooting is something a lot of people will think will be a strength of his with some time, and he's already made some strides in that area year to year.
Will they do it? Did anyone really think? Of course, the fever break. Here's Adams finding Tui in the corner.
Isaiah Evans is someone I thought would be returning for his sophomore year in college, but some late season scoring bursts have jumped him into consideration for this draft. A return to Duke is definitely still in play to start next season, but with his size, athleticism, and shooting ability, he could decide to make the jump now. He was super efficient off the bench with some ultra green light. There are some obvious questions still with his frame, defensive ability, and playmaking, but the shot has me excited for his future.
Well, had he not, he wouldn't have gotten the shot off because they closed hard. Oh! It's a left ankle injury, but something to pay attention to.
Alex Karaban chose to return to UConn after winning back-to-back national titles, and his play was up and down this season, but good enough for me to keep him around too. His role was still the same despite the losses UConn suffered. As with Karaban, you aren't going to get somebody who's going to handle the ball or create much, but he's a knockdown shooter and a pretty adept finisher. And although he's not the greatest defender, he can block shots in the perimeter and in the paint, and he had good switchability at the college level.
A lot of activity. Karaban. Basketball. There it is again. Swing it. Karaban.
There was the point I considered Miles Byrd a potential lottery pick this season, but his shooting splits fell a ton after a cold stretch, and he finished under 40% on the season and 30% from deep, so a return to San Diego State may be likely with Guath also returning. But I buy him as a shooter long term, and the big draw here is a 3 stocks a game and crazy athleticism as a 6'7" wing. He can put the ball on the floor and create his own offense, so paired with the freak defensive ability, I could see his name get called in round 1 if he decides to go. Coming into the year, Boogie Flam was looking like one of the best pure points in this draft, but some poor efficiency and an injury really hurt his draft stock. He averaged 6 assists a game when healthy though, and part of the reason he's such an effective passer is due to his ability as a scoring threat. He's great in the pick and roll, and despite a low percentage of the rim, I think he's shown traits of a good slasher with a good mix of layups and floaters in his bag. But being just 6'2" and having the scoring slump he did is why he isn't really seen as a first round guy anymore. I like Bogolyub Markovic as one of the better second-round project picks in this class. He is frail for 6'11", but he seems to be filling out a bit and should continue to grow in that area. He doesn't really use his size to score. He gets buckets with spot-up jumpers, running the floor, and having great touch in the post. The mobility is big with his size. That kind of offensive versatility can make him really appealing to NBA front offices. Milos Uzan officially declared for the draft after a really strong season at Houston, helping lead them to a national title appearance. Uzan was an incredible guard at the college level and has the size to play in the NBA at either guard spot. And as most Houston players, he's an excellent defender. He shot 43% from deep this season and is super efficient as a passer, averaging over 4 assists and just 1 turnover per game.
Pryor, a quiet night. Uzan, a hot night.
Uzan, shake and bake.
Tyrese Proctor had his best season of his career this year, especially from a shooting standpoint. Over 40% from 3, including a red-hot start to the tournament, and also a career-high 45% from the floor. The assist totals were down due to the President's Cooper flag and a guard-heavy team this season. We'll see if he decides to run it back for his senior year, but if he goes, I definitely see a team buying the previous creation with a now much-improved jumper.
250 with a ridiculous wingspan.
Say goodnight. Proctor.
Chaz Lanier transferred to Tennessee from North Florida this season and made an instant impact similar to Dalton Knecht. Knecht was definitely a better player, but Lanier is a gifted offensive weapon and finished his college career with a 40% three-point percentage on almost 700 attempts. He projects as an average size 2 guard, and the defense and playmaking is definitely lacking, which is why he's a round 2 guy. But his quick release and elite efficiency is a great asset that should draw a lot of interest.
UCLA doesn't allow it. Chaz Lanier, quick release there. Lanier with 10 first-half points.
Darion Williams is both in the draft as well as the transfer portal, so we'll see what he decides for his future, but as a prospect, I think he's definitely worth a second-round pick. He's a bigger guard at 6'6" and plays really well in the post using his strength. He showcased his shot making this season, having some big scoring nights, including 23 against Florida. While he is strong, he's not the greatest athlete, so the versatility is the sell with his game, and I think plenty of teams will be interested in him if he stays in the draft.
Here, top-end screen, cross-court Williams firing a 3.
Sergio De La Rey is only 19, but has played solid basketball off the bench in the EuroLeague. His minutes are up and down, obviously, but he's been a strong distributing guard for Valencia. He's an efficient shooter and pairs that with a pretty high assist rate. He hasn't turned the ball over much either, which is great to see for a young guy, and although there isn't a ton to go off of, the high efficiency play will definitely be a draw, even as just a stash pick. Dink Pate is another big guard who has had some higher hopes but just hasn't put it together yet. There's a lot of highs and lows with performances in the G League, especially in terms of the jumper. His biggest strengths right now are definitely his ability to create looks for himself, as well as his versatility due to his size and skill set. But there's still a ways to go with him to be a lead guy at the next level, and the jumper definitely needs to come along stronger. RJ Lewis is another guy who both declared for the draft and entered the portal, so he may not end up in this class, But this season, RJ developed into one of the best players in the country at St. John's. The All-American and Big East Player of the Year averaged 18 a night at 6'7". That scoring ability as a taller guard will be intriguing to NBA front offices. He doesn't shoot a ton from deep, but the ability to get to the rim, draw fouls, and score inside the arc is next level, and he plays with super high effort and energy. Just the type of winning player you'd want on your team. Jamir Watkins may again return to school as he intends to transfer if the NBA doesn't end up a better option. His stock's been fairly stagnant compared to where it was last year, but his level of play this season was still very solid. He's a 6'7" wing with good strength and a ton of athleticism who seems to be working on the jumper despite, again, a lower percentage. And while he's still up and down, I definitely see the improvement as he's got a lot of value as a defender and athlete on the floor regardless. Kobe Brea is arguably the best shooter in the entire draft class, and in terms of percentage, arguably the best shooter in all of college basketball over the past few seasons. His downside is the obvious major flaws in the defensive end, as well as the lack of creation and on-ball ability. But as a shooting specialist, I definitely think Brea could find a spot in the league.
We'll try to lock him up tonight. Brea will shoot from the outside.
Cedric Coward transferred to Washington State from Eastern Washington, and although an injury caused the season to end after just 6 games, those 6 were super impressive as he broke out to almost 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks a game while shooting 40% from 3. The 6'6" senior also entered the transfer portal on top of declaring, but if he elects to stay in the draft, I think the well-roundedness he showed should definitely get him draft looks even with just 6 games.
A trio of former teammates definitely helps his count.
John Tanja is another senior transfer breakout who elevated his game this season. The Colorado State and Missouri transfer landed on first-team All-Big Ten and was a consensus All-American for Wisconsin this season, putting up almost 20 points a night on great efficiency along with absurd free throw percentage. He's just a stellar scorer who definitely has NBA upside. He is an older guy, but his performance this season as a versatile scorer is definitely worth a second-round look to me.
Tanja on the drive, hangs and...
Zion James came to Duke this offseason from Tulane and turned into a very high-quality starting guard for arguably the best team in the country until the Final Four proved otherwise. James landed on the ACC All-Defensive team this season. He has good size for a guard listed at 6'6". He also shot over 40% from 3 this season, so the shooting value on top of that defense could definitely get him drafted this season.
Active when he's in the game. Nice slip. The roll. Extra.
Eric Dixon was also one of the best players in the country this season, especially scoring-wise, leading the nation in points per game with 23 a night. That production alone could easily get him drafted, even with his age being a clear negative at 24 and some athletic limitations. He doesn't block shots and is kind of a tweener, so it's hard to see him impacting much defensively. But again, the season he had as a scorer should definitely give him a shot to be selected this June.
One more point from the all-time record. Into the paint. Up and under.
Johan Grunlow looks like a potential second-round draft and stash big man. He's got a decent-looking jumper, shooting about 34% from deep, but his bigger strength is being a premier shot blocker in the German league right now. There are some questions if the rest of his game will come around, but the pick-and-pop potential and defensive upside definitely have scouts interested in him right now.
Tough comeback. Got to know where to go. Grunlow's made 1 3. Trying to go pick and roll.
Micah Peavy's been on the radar for several years now and never really played well enough to make the leap to the league. But after the finish to his senior season he had at Georgetown this year, the draft is a real possibility. He played an absurd 37 minutes per game this year and shot the 3 an entire 10% higher than he did the rest of his college career. And again, shined defensively where his real value lies as a potential 3-and-D contributor at the end of round 2.
That's wide open inside.
Hunter Salas shot up boards last season with a breakout year at Wake Forest, but inconsistency forced him to return to school. And this season he produced more, but the inconsistency was still there with the shot making. While he's on, he looks like the part of an NBA player, but when he's off and forcing tough looks, you can see why he came back. And the 3-point percentage was pretty rough again, so I think performing in pre-draft workouts is going to be very important for raising his draft stock.
To keep the top offensive rebounder in the ACC, Ewan off the board.
That's it for my third big board of the 2025 NBA draft class. Let me know your thoughts on the list down below, as well as who your favorite players are in this class, or any ideas you have for content in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.